So Satsangaji, there's still, I'll start again. There's still people coming in, but we're going to make a start just so we can make the most of everyone's time. Hopefully you can see the slides. If you have any issues, please let us know. So my name's Amandeep Gaur, and also taking part in this is Dr. Darshan Kaur. So some of you may know some of us and some of you may not. So that Dr. Darshan Kaur Benji is a clinical psychologist, and I am a coach and a chaplain. And so I'm just going to be doing two things at once, which you should never do, which is I'm trying to be admitting people and looking at the slides at the same time. So welcome to week one. We really appreciate you taking out your time, Sad Sangat Ji, to come. And what we're asking is that we just be open in whatever it is that we're going to receive. Sometimes we come to something and we have questions in our mind, but it's very important that we come with this open perspective, that our mind can be changed. So I guess one of the themes of what we're going to be covering in this course is this idea of transformation. And I'll get into it in a minute, but that's one of the primary reasons why we wanted to do this course. It was not necessarily because Benji and I are Gyanis, because we're definitely not. But it's about that practical transformation that happens in our lives. We all are on different paths or on different parts of that journey. So everybody is welcome here. It doesn't matter if you're a Sikh, if you're not a Sikh, if you're new to Sikhi, if you've been practicing Sikhi for years, that doesn't matter here. We're going to put all of that aside, and we're all coming to this. I think it's the Buddhists that talk about the beginner's mind. So we are here also to learn from the Sangat as well, but we also ask that everybody is open to whatever is being shared here as well. So I'm just going to get started. So as we do this, as a coach, there's lots of things that we learn about what's the best way to learn. And obviously, when it comes to meditation as well, the primary thing is all about our dhyan. It's about our focus, our concentration. So even though I'm aware there's people who are taking their kids to Punjabi school this morning, there's people who are trying to, mothers and fathers who are trying to multitask and, look after their parents or whatever it is. But what we do ask as part of this course agreement is that we try to reduce any distractions. So if you've got a mobile phone, please just put it aside if you're not already using it for the call. Put everything on mute and just try and be as present as you possibly can, because we will get back what we give. If we give something our full attention, we will receive so much from that. And I know there's lots of science and statistics about how much you actually take away from a course is actually a very small percentage, compared to what you will see going on. So if we're distracted with other things at the same time, that's not going to be help. So that's the first binti, as much as possible. Also, just like we said, try to be open, engaged, use that beginner's mind. And only if we're open to receiving will we receive. If our banda is closed, if our vessel has a plate on top of it, it's going to be really difficult to receive anything from here. And also is that level of commitment. So again, I'm just admitting people as we go. So this course is not just about knowledge, Again, as someone who's on this journey of self-discovery, I did a counseling course, I did a coaching course, I do chaplaincy course, I do this course, I do that course. And what I was able to do was obtain lots and lots of knowledge. But knowledge doesn't necessarily transform into wisdom or transformation. It's that experience plus that knowledge which equals that true wisdom and transformation. So as this course is called Sikh Meditation, we will be encouraging everybody, even if you're just starting with 60 seconds, 5 minutes, whatever it is, the encouragement is to do that, to commit to that, to do that as part of your routine every day, and you can figure out what works for you. If you have small children, first thing in the morning might not work, but last thing at night might. And so it's all in the doing. We want people to have the experience of what we're talking about, because that's what really transformed our lives. That's what's changed for us. And for me, that's what Maharaj, that's what Gurbani is telling us to do as well, is Gurbani baniye, to become Gurbani, not just read it again and again. Yes, we must read it, we must explore it, we must contemplate it, but we also must do it. Gurbani kahe, sevak jana mane. So Gurbani says, Gurbani kahe, sevak, and we as the servant, as the person, as the student towards our guru, we're going to then implement that. So Darshan Benji, feel free at any moment to jump in and add anything that you want to add. Okay. So Benji, do you want to just explain the aims?
Waheguru, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Waheguru,
Benji.
Can you hear me now? Still quiet?
No, we can hear you.
Okay. No, somebody can't. Kuljit Benji, you can hear me? Yeah? Okay, brilliant. Just tell me to be a bit louder if I go quieter again. But it's a blessing to see you all this morning, to have all of us on the call together, because this opportunity we have, it may seem like, we've just we made the decision, we saw the advert, we clicked yes, we put all our details in Eventbrite and we got the ticket. It may seem as if we made that happen, but somehow, somewhere, all of us have been together before. Gurbani tells us that we've been Sanjogis together, all of us, every single one of us here on this call. And Gurbani tells us, Purab Janam ke mile Sanjogi, that we've been together, we've shared spiritual wealth in previous lifetimes, and that's why we're here on this call today. And that's why we have this incredibly rare opportunity to reconnect to our true purpose in this life. So Sangatji, it's not by chance that we're here, and this is a blessing for every single one of us. The aims of the course, as Amandeep's outlined here, as Amandeep Benji has outlined here, the aims of this course are really to connect back to our divine source. So every single one of us here is sitting in a body, and we've been sitting in these bodies for many lifetimes, different ones, different roles. And every single time we've come to play again in this world, in this desh, which we call Gal's desh, we have had a different role, had a different costume, but we haven't managed to reconnect to our divine source, hence us coming back into Juna, coming back into birth and death. So the ultimate purpose of this course is to try and walk our way back, because we were once connected. We were once in oneness, in a space of oneness with the divine. And so the aim of this course is how did we become separate? Jod vichode, vichode jade. How did we become vichode from Malik, from our true source, from our true state? And how can we then go back to connection? How can we join again, merge again with the divine? So in order to do this, we're going to be both doing the practical techniques of Simran. So Simran is the methodology for how the mind rediscovers who it really is, its true state. And the Gurbani Koj is the direction, is what are the signs that we're getting closer to our true state? What are the obstacles that come up when we're trying to reconnect to our divine source? How will we recognize the divine? Gurbani says, Pucho Sant Mero Thakur Kaisa. How do we have Pashan? How will we recognize the voice of our divine, the shakal, the sight of our divine? Because it's been so many lifetimes. So as part of the course as well, we're going to be sharing our own experiences of our journeys. And crucially, this is going to be an opportunity, and there's so many of us on the call, which is brilliant, but we're going to try and create a community here where we can ask questions of each other while we're all on our spiritual journeys at different points. We can all valuably contribute to each other's spiritual journeys. So this is what this course is about. Ultimately, we're going to have the WhatsApp group alongside, and people are free to use that to ask questions, to share vichar, to do Koj. And this self-discovery, this process isn't going to just end after the 6 weeks. This is just the beginning, Sangatji. It's going to continue, it's going to continue, and it's going to continue until we reconnect with that source. That's our purpose. That's what we're going to achieve with Guru Sahib's Beyond Kirpa in this human life this time round, is that we're going to reconnect to our source. This is our turn now. Pei Parapat Manuk de Huriya. Gobind Milan ki eh teri bariya. And it doesn't matter how far away you think you are from that goal. What we'll start to realize in this course is that our thoughts are not truths. Our beliefs are not truths. So it doesn't matter how far away we think we are from that goal of connection, from that goal of peace. With Guru Sahib's Kirpa, we have the perfect system here. We've got the Sat Sangat, within which Paramatma themselves is present, Vicha Sangat, Har Prabhavasya Jiyo. So anything is possible. Over to you, Amandeep Benji.
Hanji. So we've all come here from different places. We've all had different life experiences, and there will be a reason why we're here today. So like Benji said, there's that high spiritual reason, which is Maharaji's brought us all here today. We think we turned out, we think we made the time to come, but actually we're Bishalis and Jogi, we're meant to be together. We've been together before, but there might be questions in our mind. And for some people, those questions will come from a deep place of suffering, which is how my journey started. And I'll go into that in a little bit. So on the slide, you can see some of these questions are the questions that I had. I was going through suffering, I was going through struggling, and I was thinking, why is life so hard? Sometimes we have relationship issues with our husband, our wife, our children, our parents. I was having a really interesting conversation, which might come up in the course of this, about trauma, this idea of trauma, where our parents or the generations before didn't talk about trauma so much, but nowadays we're hearing about it so much. So how do we heal that trauma? There's a lot about manifestation. And even though within Sikhi, there's ultimately only one thing that we want to manifest, which is that milap, which is that union with Vaheguru. But what is the idea, what is the concept behind that we learn about in Gurbani? So for some of us, we've been in Sikhi for a long time. For some of us, we're new. Sometimes I know with my own experience, we came into Sikhi and it was great, it was amazing. And then at some point we became a little bit stagnant in our practice, not because there was anything wrong with Sikhi, but that was my practice that was becoming stagnant. Benji is a clinical psychologist. So, Benji often says, I'm going to put words in your mouth here, Benji, and say, she often says, I've had to throw out all of those psychology books because the gyan that Maharaj is giving us through Gurbani is so next level compared to what we're reading. It's that ultimate truth that we're looking for. It's the whole truth, the complete truth, as opposed to a lot of the self-development stuff and the psychology stuff that the Western world is coming out with. And it's not to say that it's irrelevant. It's one piece of the puzzle, whereas Maharaj is talking about the complete, the whole. And so we might have those questions in terms of our day-to-day life, but then some of us will have those ultimate questions like, what is the purpose of my life? How do I actually, if I'm reading every day, just like Benji said, if it's my turn to meet with Paramatma, how do I actually do that? Because I've been reading this Gurbani for years, or I've been coming into the Sangat for years, but how do I actually make that happen? And we always share, you know, if you want to become a doctor, if you want to become a counselor, if you want to become an engineer, anything in your life, you have this concept, you have this goal of, I want to do this. And then there's steps along the way. Are we walking? Do we even know what those steps are? And are we walking on that path towards that milab? Are we? And the signal for that is that we're changing inside, not that we're just becoming knowledgeable and we can say Gurbani says this and Gurbani says that. But are we transforming inside? Are we changing as a person? Are we having that experience of Paramatma, of Vaheguru, of God, of the divine within our lives? And so those are some of the questions that we're hoping to explore and to answer from our own perspectives. But I think now would be a good opportunity, because there is so many participants. I think is actually exactly 100 participants, which is amazing. So we're not necessarily going to unmute, but if you are happy to, just take a moment to contemplate, to do that chord within yourself of why are you actually here? What do you think brought you here? What are the questions within your mind? What are the answers that you're looking for? So we'll read some of those off. So if you want to just take a moment to think about that and put it on the chat. And what's really important is to set that intention. You know, every day as a Sikh within the Rahat Maryada, we're asked to do ardas. And that ardas is an intention. You're setting that intention to Vaheguru, to that jyot within, that light within, to say, this is what I want from life. And we know, Jo mange Thakur apne ke, soi soi deve. Whatever we ask for from that master, they give it to us. So if we're really clear on why we're here, what we're looking for, we will receive that. We will see it. We'll be open to it. But if we're just kind of, you know, oh, I'm just going to dip in and out, sure, you might get some gems of wisdom, but it's going to be much more effective if we actually really intentional about what it is we're looking for. Hanji, so go for it. Go and type. So Benji, I don't know if you want to read some off as they're coming up.
So we have to find the sehaj, the stillness inside. I feel connected in moments, but then I feel disconnected again when we're back to real life. To connect to Vaheguru. So there's so many messages being shared. It's hard to connect.
Hanji.
Vaheguru. So let's all read and let's all kind of, see the similarities within our own selves and our own kind of reasons for being here.
Hanji.
Vaheguru.
Hanji. So as we can see, there's a mixture there. There's people who are talking about their mental health, their anxiety. People are talking about wanting to experience that oneness, that such, to feel, have an experience of that sej, of that stillness. And so this is all talked about in Gurbani, whether it's mental health, whether it's relationship issues, or whether it's that path towards that milab, that union with Vaheguru. All of those answers for every question in the world, those answers are in Gurbani. And as a Sangat together, we're going to explore those things and have a look at what is Maharaji telling us is the answer to that, but also how do we practically apply that within our lives. So I'll just give it another few seconds if people want to carry on reading. So that thing of connecting and then disconnecting, that's definitely something I experience. I always say I'm a saint when I'm by myself with my eyes closed. You know, I feel so connected to Paramatma. But then when you open your eyes, you know, it can last for a little while. But then what do you do? What do you do if, you know, there's conflict with your partner or your children aren't listening to you or there's stress at work? So again, Maharaji's given us these tools and techniques and how to deal with that as well. How do we meditate with our eyes closed, but also how do we stay connected and meditate with our eyes open? That's all given within Gurbani, and we're going to cover that as well. How to deal with the Panch Chor. So we'll talk about that. Who are the Panch Chor? How do they play a real part in our lives? Okay, Ji. Okay, brilliant. So we will continue. So Maharaj Gende Nanak Dukhiya Sab Sansar. So the whole world is suffering. The whole world is struggling in some sense. But what's really important is that we read, when we're reading Gurbani, that we read the whole Pankti, we get some context on what Maharaj is saying. So Maharaj Gende Manne Nao Soi Jin Jaye. Only those who can connect to the Naam. So here, where I would use now or Naam is interchangeable with Vaiguru, with Paramatma. And we'll go into how that takes, how it's the formless form, but also how it takes some sort of form. So we'll go into detail in coming weeks, but some of the ways that we can experience that Naam or that connection to Vaiguru, that union with Vaiguru, is through Shabad, is through hearing Vaiguruji's voice. So we'll go into that a little bit further in coming weeks, or to see Vaiguruji's light, to see their prakash. So they are form and they are also formless. They're part of all of us. Man tu jod sarup hai, apna mool pachan. Vaiguruji is that divine light that's within us. But also, Sab Gobind hai, Gobind bin nahi koi. Everything's Vaiguru, everything's Vaiguru. There's nothing but Vaiguru. So it's only when we're making that effort and through Vaiguruji's grace, they're both needed, and we're connecting to that Naam, we're connecting to Paramatma, only that person has that successful life. So the opposite of suffering for me is that state of peace. And then Maharaj kende auri karam na likhe laye. There's no other karam, there's no other action that is going to help us. So again, this is a point of reflection. How many times are we thinking, I'll be happy when? I'll be happy when I do this course. I'll be happy when I get, the latest gadget, when my kids grow up, when my husband changes, when, my health gets better, my mental or my physical health gets better. We're always moving that bar of I'll be happy when. But Maharaj Kende, even though we have this gris jivan, we've got to live in the world, have these relationships, go to work, earn money as well. It's ultimately that Naam, that connection to Vaiguru, that is the most important thing. So the why for us, why we wanted to do this course, is because we had a lot of those same struggles. In fact, probably everything on this list is something that we've experienced, or sometimes still experience. But there came a point where either through our suffering, dukkadaru sukharogapaya, sometimes that suffering is our medicine, or through searching, looking for something, just being curious. Some of you might be here thinking, I have a pretty cool life. I'm doing okay, but actually I'm just curious. Is there something more? Sometimes through stuckness, we might have been into Sikhi or been on a spiritual path for years. And that's something that Benji will talk about in her journey, where, she was born into a Sikh family. But at some point, you're doing the Bhat, you're going into Sangat, but you're feeling like you're not making any progress on this path. So that might be the reason why we're here. And that's, again, definitely something that I experienced. And then also the practical understanding and application. Like, what is the doing? What is the karni here? Maharaj Ji talks again and again about, sorry, I've got something popping up. They talk again and again about Uddam Karo. They give us direct instruction, Hukam Rajai Chalana, Jap, right? So again and again, Maharaj is giving us instructions. So how do we follow those instructions? So for us, these are the kind of things that we're going to focus on. And please don't be like, oh, well, I've heard this in the Gurdwara, I've heard this at camp so many times. But what we began to realize is that Maharaji really does have that perfect system for transformation and for connection, for that path to have that milap with Vaheguru, to see their darshan, to hear their shabad, to let go of whoever we thought we were in the past, whatever we thought we've done, whatever that belief system is, that I'm a bad person or the world is a bad place. Maharaji can transform all of that. And we start with this system of Gurbani. Now, what some of us do, and I was doing for a long time, is we'll read the Gurbani. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with reading Gurbani every day. You know, that nitnem, nit meaning all the time, every day, we do it again and again. That's there for a reason. You know, we have this mind. If we just read Gurbani once and we understood it, that would be amazing. But the fact is, this mind is chanchal. This mind is all over the place. This mind does not listen sometimes, right? So that Gurbani is there. Yes, it's there to be read again and again. But what we were meant to do is to search within it, to do khoj of it, to contemplate it, and to apply it practically in our lives. So that's really important to understand. Sorry, I'm just trying to admit people at the same time. I don't know if I'm doing that. So Benji, if you want to continue. Okay, sorry, I'll just carry on then. So Maharaj has given us that instruction again and again in Gurbani. And what we want to do is we want to get into the habit of doing that khoj, of contemplating. So even if you don't understand Gurbani, you can start with the English translation. But we would highly encourage is pick up those words, because their English translation isn't always correct. The more we come into Sangat, the more we will pick up, okay, man means mind. Simran means to meditate or to contemplate. There's different contexts within Simran. And then ultimately, what is that karni, what is that doing that we need to do? That is that Simran. Again and again, throughout Gurbani, Maharaji will say, Simaro, Simar, Simar Sukha Pavo. Again and again, do that Simran to find that Sukh. So sometimes we might say Simran is just remembering. It might be just bringing Vaheguru into your mind. But then there's this deeper practice of that meditation, to sit with your eyes closed or with your eyes open, to chant the Gur Mantra, to chant the mantra, the name of Vaheguru. That's just one stage of Sikh meditation of the Simran. And then as we start to chant, just to give you an idea of what our understanding from Gurbani has been, is we might start to chant that Akhri Naam, that word, that mantra or that mantra, Gur Mantra, that Guru Sahib has given us. But then as we start to chant that, Pariye mat papa ke sang oh tope na ve ke rang, this mind starts to purify as we connect to that Naam. Then we start to hear that sound of Vaheguru, that Anhad Shabad, that sound, that primordial sound that is within every single one of us. So again, this isn't just coming from theory, it's come from that Sad Sangat, being in that Sad Sangat where people are doing that Simran, they're doing that khoj, and they're starting to hear these internal sounds. And they're starting to experience that peace and that bliss that comes from those internal sounds. And then through that continued practice, through that guidance of Gurbani and Sad Sangat, they're able to see that prakash, that light of Vaheguruji inside of them. And then the happy side effect of that is you'll find that you're no longer in conflict with your family members so much. You're no longer feeling anxious so much. You're no longer feeling depressed so much. You are having a visceral experience beyond the physical senses of Paramatma, of Vaheguru. And we also have these additional elements of Rida, setting that intention, that Kirtan, and that Seva as well, which all forms part of that. So I'm going to go a little bit into my journey. Benji, do you want to add anything at this point?
No, just
Okay.
yeah,
I'm just going to
ahead.
check if there's more. Sorry, no, I'm just seeing if there's anyone else in the waiting room while you're doing that.
Okay.
ठीक है जी. Hanji. Okay. So I'm going to try and encapsulate it. I can go on. So Benji, feel free to stop me if I'm going on and on. So when I'm sharing these pictures, I'm not sharing it because I'm saying, oh, my family is now wearing their kakar, they're wearing the stada, and aren't we brilliant? That's not what these pictures are about at all. For me, what these pictures represent is the internal transformation, which is now being shown on the outside. And it's not always the case. You know, there's this really funny phrase, and I say it in jest, I don't mean to offend anyone, but sometimes we go on this path and we become I am right Taris instead of Amrit Taris. Instead of that Amrit that Maharaj is giving us, this internal nectar, this connection to themselves, instead of turning into people who have that Amrit, sometimes we turn into I am right Taris. And that was definitely part of my journey as well, where people on the outside may look like they're following the spiritual path, this path of Sikhi, but actually their man, bach karam, their thoughts, their words, and their actions are not reflecting that. And the fact is, we're all human. So we're all trying on this journey, and there might be people like that, but it's not for us to judge them. It's for us to focus on our own journey. So the reason why I'm sharing this picture is because of that internal difference that happened. So that picture on the left is what I would call, I think it's St. John of the Cross from the Christian mystical tradition, coined this phrase, which is called the dark night of the soul, which for me is that Dukkadaru, is the darkest time, one of the darkest times of my life. Now, on the outside, it looks amazing, right? I'm not very good at dressing up, but with the help of whoever I had around me, you know, I had this beautiful outfit, this beautiful jewelry, you know, had my hair done, job in central London. We were going on 2 holidays a year, 2 major holidays. You know, we had a house that we owned. Still do, and we had children. We have children, one of each. So on the outside, it looked like the perfect life. I even get on with my mother-in-law, which is really rare, right? So it seemed like everything was perfect on the outside. But what you can't see in that picture is that I'd just come out of hospital. I'd spent 2 weeks in hospital, nil by mouth. I had gallstones. I was getting ready to have my gallbladder removed. This was my brother-in-law's wedding. And the stress of my brother-in-law's wedding, of what everybody told me I should be, what everybody else told me was important, was a major contributing factor in my physical illness. And that's a whole different course, but how our mind is connected to our body. In fact, Maharaj in Gurbani, Farid ji kende, Farida bure da palakar, gussa mana hadaye, dehi rog na lagei, palle sab kich paye. So Bhagat Farid ji is telling us in Gurbani that if someone does bad to you, do good to them, think good to them, say pala to them, because if you hold anger and resentment within your body, it will get diseased. So if you want to avoid that, wish good upon them. So what was happening for me was I'd spent my whole life being a people pleaser. At first, it was pleasing my parents, pleasing my family. It was pleasing the school system. It was pleasing the work system. Then it was pleasing my husband, pleasing my in-laws, pleasing my wider family. And I was constantly in that place that maybe I will be enough when I look perfect. Maybe I'll be enough when everybody likes me, or I earn enough money, or I get the right job, or we go on the right holidays. Maybe then I will be enough. But as I continued pleasing, at some point, what happened is it all started to fall apart because I realized I couldn't please all the people all the time. And if we want to go into the psychology of trauma, I had a lot of childhood trauma in terms of all kinds of abuse that I'm not going to go into because I feel like it's not relevant anymore. You know, whether it was bullying, whether it was physical abuse, all kinds of things happened that made me into that people pleaser. So I continued on that journey until I got to that point where I was emotionally, physically, I was, you know, harge. I was literally on the floor. I was a mess. And that's when my journey into Sikhi really started. I started to ask those existential questions, which is, why am I here? What am I here to do? How do I overcome this suffering? Is this all there is? Is there a God? And that journey continued. So we started to come into Sikhi, but then at some point I got stuck again. So I was doing the part. I was trying to look the part. I was going to the Gurdwara. But still there was this anger. When the children wouldn't listen to me, I'd blow up in anger at them. When my husband, I felt like if he didn't support me in something that I wanted to do, I felt resentful towards him, towards the wider family as well. And so we started to go on this journey of counseling, of healing. And I was having a conversation with somebody on the weekend, and she was saying, oh, I'm doing yoga, I'm doing breath work, I'm doing meditation. But actually, when I'm alone, I'm still crying. I still feel anxious. I still feel depressed. And what we realized was, yes, it's great to understand what happened to you when you were younger, to put that in context. And it's great to learn some of these tools like breath work, yoga. They definitely help our nervous system, which Benji can talk more about later. But what happens when you stop doing that breath work and you've relaxed your body? The mind comes back online, right? You still got those same thought systems, those same vichar. And we're going to use this word vichar a lot. So vichar just means thoughts or furne. So we're still going back to that same system. We've done the breath work, we've relaxed the body, we've done the yoga, we've done the mindfulness. And now we open our eyes and that person says that thing to us, or that situation externally arises, and we're still having the same reactions. So for me, that's what really started to change as we started to do the Simran, as we started to meditate, we started to chant Vai Guru. Yes, we were still doing some kind of breath work within that Vai Guru, inhale, exhale. We were chanting, we were letting go of the thoughts. So that's still part of that meditation. But then it was taking that into my eyes open. It was understanding this story of our life, the story of our mind, where we have these panch-jod, these 5 thieves, these 5 tendencies of Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Inkar, these lustful desires, this anger, this attachment, this ego, this greed, which is constantly playing a part in our lives, which is telling us, I am not enough and you are not enough, and causing that conflict. And so the ultimate truth that we started to realize was Mantu Jot Sarup hai apna mool pachan, that we are divine. Everything that we are searching for, that peace, that bliss, Vaheguru themselves already exists within us. And you can see that in a newborn baby. As long as it's fed, as long as it's well, it is peaceful, it is blissful. And that's contained within us. But how do we access it? And that's by going beyond these belief systems that have been programmed into us. Whether it's through Kal, which is the opposite of Akal, through Maya, through those Panch-jod, and we'll go deeper into those concepts, or whether we see it as it's been programmed into us through our family, through the media, through the external systems that are saying this is what's going to create your happiness. And I'm just going to finish by saying, to counter that, what was the ultimate nugget that's changed my life and the practice that's changed my life is to realize that actually if I stop looking outside at what other people are doing or what other people expect me to do, and I start doing that internal work that Guru Maharaj is giving me, then I can I can lose myself within that. I can lose my expectation. I can lose my anger. I can lose my desire. I can lose everything that I thought I was, that unworthy person, that abused person, that traumatized person. I'm no longer any of that. I'm just that Jodh. I'm just that Sikh of the Guru who, whether my eyes are open or my eyes are closed, I'm trying to connect to that truth, that vibration, that light, that sound, that bliss, that peace that's inside of me. And that's through that practice of the Simran. And that's what we ultimately are going to be sharing here, is that step-by-step process on how do you do that with your eyes closed? How does that work scientifically as well? Because we've been brought up in the West, we want to know the answers to our questions. How do we walk that path of the saints? Sant ka marg, dharam ki pauri, ko vadapagi paye. That staircase of the saint, it's one step at a time. But what are those deeper messages within Gurbani? And can it be as simple as chanting Vai Guruji's name? And the answer is yes, that's the first part. That's the first stage, is to kill your thoughts, to kill your identity. But then we take that further and we start to connect on a subtle level, a suksham level, beyond the physical body as well. And there's been many people within the Sangat who have been walking this path, and we've started to experience that connection to Paramatma. And that is essentially what has changed our lives. So I've kind of rambled on a bit. So I'm going to invite Benji to come in now and make sense of it all.
Right. So this journey of life, so I share a bit about my journey, my personal journey. So I was brought up in an Amritdhari family and was very much involved in Sangat from a young age, and was kind of immersed in the world of Sikhi, you could say. So Kirtan, Gurbani, Path, programs, Kirtan programs, etc. And for me, it gave me a sense of belonging. And just in the same way that, you know, when we find a group that kind of is similar to us and has kind of similar values and ideals, we feel that sense of belonging. But there came a point in my life where belonging wasn't enough for me. And, you know, particularly around teenage years and then early adulthood, I started to see that although I was connecting to this religion, I was doing the practices, ticking the boxes of doing the part, attending the programs, looking the part. Internally, I wasn't connecting to those states of sehaj that were described within Gurbani. So I still, particularly when I got married as well, saw that I had a lot of anger, would struggle, had a lot of conflict with my husband for many, many years into our marriage, really struggled with loneliness, rejection, abandonment, all of these kinds of issues. And just ultimately was in a lot of inner turmoil, basically. I didn't have that feeling of being settled, comfortable, relaxed within my own self. And I didn't have a personal experience, relationship with Paramatma, with Vaheguru. So although I read the Gurbani and I loved to think deeply about the meanings of the Gurbani, what I didn't have was that true experience of what Gurbani talks about, you know, jo nar dukh mein dukh nahi manna. Like in those places of dukh, when suffering would come, I would become completely swept away in those waves of lobh, of anger, of homme. And I started to question what is it that's going on. So at that point, even though I was Amritdhari and had been within Sikhi for many years, I had a lot of doubt about Paramatma, about religion. You know, the philosophical kind of Western mind was constantly thinking, well, is religion just a crux for human beings? You know, like, is there really a God? You know, is this just all a way for us to pass our time in this turbulent world? All those questions were still very much in my mind, even though I was practicing as an Amritdhari. And what started to happen was I had this background as a clinical psychologist and started to see that something wasn't quite right, that either Sikhi wasn't right for me, or it wasn't the correct path, or it was something about my interpretation or my practice of Sikhi. And what really started to change things for me was when I got married. My husband actually had a strong meditation practice, Simran practice, and he wasn't as good, you know, for example, his part, he would read the part, but constantly make mistakes. And I'd be always ready there to correct him and saying, you know, I know better, I know how to do Kirtan and all these things. And I wasn't doing that overtly, but subtly there was a homme there. But when it came to arguments, when it came to real life, who would be the one that backed down? Who would be the one who went into sehaj quicker? Who would be the one to be forgiving quicker, sooner? And that was my husband, time and time again. And then I started to see that even though had been into Sikhi longer, was doing all of the tick boxes more than he was actually experiencing more of the qualities that are described within Gurbani of sehaj, of unconditional love, of being able to stay stable and anchored through those turbulent times. He was displaying that. And the only real difference between me and him, he also had trauma. I also had experienced trauma. He came from a single parent family. I'd had issues in my family, all sorts of things, that all kind of looked the same on the surface. But the one thing that was different between me and him was that he had a consistent meditation practice, Simran practice. So every day without fail, he would spend a long time sitting down in Simran, connecting and going into a state of sun, which I was, initially was like, oh, he's just falling asleep. What's he doing? But he never once told me about, I wasn't really open to it. He didn't tell me, you should do Simran, you should do this, you should incorporate this. But what started to happen is spending time with him and seeing that he was in a state of sej led me to ask myself whether Paramatma had put me in this union for a reason, for me to learn, for me to develop, because that had always been my yearning. Despite having this disbelief in Paramatma, despite having the doubts, I always had a deep yearning, as many of you may relate to as well. At those very deep, dark times of suffering, that voice inside of us that calls out for something, that calls out for help, that says, if you're there, God, give me a sign, if this is true, take me in your direction, take me towards you, because I have nothing else left in this material realm. And those moments when we're in that deep, dark pit, when nothing in this material realm can give us what we need, our friends are letting us down, we feel our family are letting us down, materially things are, not stable, or even if they are, we don't experience peace from them. We get to that very deep, dark point. That's when we give up on this material realm. In a way, we give up on this 3D world and we say, please, please let there be something more than this, because I can't continue just like this the way I am. So that deep yearning would, that voice, that Atma would be calling out at those times of suffering. And I believe that every single one of us are here today because of those deep moments of suffering that we have called out. We have asked for clarity. We have asked to see the light. We have been that drowning person. And it's only when we're drowning, isn't it, that we call out. It's only when we're thirsty that we ask for that glass of water. When things are going fine in this material realm, there's no need for us to look for something more. So that ardas, that prayer, I feel took me to that place of Simran, to learning more. And then we attended some camps where we really delved very deeply into the practice of Simran. And then fast forward 2-3 years ago, we met with Amandeep Benji and Sangat, and we started doing vichar of the Gurbani in a very analytical way. And then the only place we could get to within the core of Gurbani was the Simran. It all came back to Simran. Simro, Simar, Simar Sukh Pavo. And then there were questions coming out within the Gurbani, like, who are you really? Is man ko koi khojo pai, tanashute man kaha samai. All these deep questions, like when we leave this body, when we go to sleep, or when the person leaves the body for the final time, when they leave this sarir, when they die, what happens to the mind then? Where does the mind go? And slowly, slowly, when we started to go into the deeper levels of the Simran, again and again, chanting the Gur Mantar, following the Hukam as it started to unfold within the Gurbani, we started to see that bhakti is actually about leaving this physical body practically, not just talking about becoming detached from this material realm, becoming detached from our children, becoming detached from how our body looks, not a theoretical thing, but practically, how do you leave this physical body? Is man ko koi khojo pai, tan shute man kaha samai. Where does that mind merge into, sama into, when we leave this physical body at night? And then Bhagat Kabir ji talks about how actually the process of bhakti is the same as that process of going to sleep, leaving that body. But the difference is that the bhagat learns how to leave the body through their own will, through the Guru's mat. So when we, Guru Kirpa, when we go through these deeper sessions, we're starting quite light in this session, but in subsequent sessions, we're going to learn practically how we leave this material realm, how our mind becomes Purvesh in that spiritual realm, so that we can practically experience ourselves as Jyot Sarup, as the embodiment of divine light. And what happens when we experience ourselves as embodiment of divine light? We start to experience ourselves as having all of those qualities that Paramatma has, that unconditional love, that sahaj, that patience, that tolerance. And we actually get to experience Paramatma in their form as well. When I started to do this, going back to my journey, I didn't know how, I couldn't understand how, but I started to change. My character started to change. When I started to go into those deeper states of sun and sahaj, I started to show up as less reactive. And I couldn't understand it because my books weren't giving me the knowledge. All of my psychology books were telling me that this theory, this theory, this theory. But there was nothing apart from Gurbani that could explain my transformation. And to this very day, I don't recognize myself. I don't recognize myself. That old personality has been gone for so many years now since I've been practicing. Now, the connection to Sahaj is just so much easier. There's less anger, there's less loneliness, there's less boredom. Now there's more joy, more Sahaj, more contentment, and more of a sense of, yes, I am living life according to my highest purpose. So, Sangatji, this is what we're all going to experience by the end of these 6 weeks. I'm sure of it with Guru Sahib's Kirpa, because in Gurbani it says, Manasato Devte Pe Tyaya Naam Hare. That a mere mortal can become like a Devta just through chanting, through connecting with that Naam. And we know all of those stories within Gurbani that are not just stories of Sajan Tag, of Ganika. And we will explore these for some of you who may not be familiar. But these people who you could think of, you could say were the biggest sinners, committed the most sinful acts in this world, through connecting to that Naam were transformed. Deva pahanatariale Ram kehet jan kasnatare. That using this methodology within Gurbani, through chanting that name, we can experience transformation that we couldn't even conceive of. That God even makes stones float. Deva pahanatariale Ram kehet jan kasnatare. Who cannot be saved by connecting to that Naam? So at this point, Benji, I'm going to hand it over to you. And we're going to see if we can maybe have a practical experience of this very soon within this session.
Anji. Waheguru ji. Anji, so right. Hanji. So Maharaji tells us again and again. So sometimes we might question what does Simran actually mean? Does it just mean, oh, I think of Vaheguru in my mind sometimes I forget? Does it mean that I read Gurbani and do, this many parts? What does it mean? Do I have to chant Vaheguru, for example? So these are lots of questions that people have, and they're questions that I had as well. And I was using my own mat, I was using my own mind to kind of explore my self-development mind. And that's okay, we can do that. But it was only once that we came into the true Sangat. And when I say true Sangat, Maharaj ji kende Sad Sangat kaisi jani hai, jithe eko naam vakhani hai. That true Sangat is the one that's meditating on Vaheguru. That true Sangat is constantly talking, praising, contemplating Vaheguru. That's how we recognize it. It's got nothing to do with what we're wearing on the outside. It's got nothing to do with whether we're in a gurdwara or not. that true Sangat are the ones who have experienced Vaheguru, and then they can also tell us the way. So it's like a school, Sad Sangat Chatasala hai, where you go and you learn from the people who have done it before you. Then they can guide you. Then they can ask questions from you. And as a Sangat, we were able to explore that. And when we did that Ardas, to find a teacher, to find that Sad Sangat, to show us, those people started, through Maharaji's immense kirpa, started to come into our lives. So that first thing is that Ardas. How much do we truly want this? And just like Benji was saying, we can read all the books that we want, but there were still questions in our mind. So as we've been walking on this path, every time a question comes up, there's an answer. The answer will come up through Gurbani. It will be clear as day, where my mind couldn't understand it before because my mind was so in conflict before. So yes, we have these physical benefits. So I forgot to say actually that my body completely healed. I don't have any physical health issues now. I had endometriosis, I had fibromyalgia, I had IBS. I was coming in and out of anxiety and depression throughout my life. And those things just don't exist for me anymore. They might be there for a minute, they might be there for an hour. But through this practice of Simran, I know that they will disappear, and they do. And so we've seen this again and again within the Sangat that we're in, where people will come, they've got a relationship problem, they've got a health problem, they've got a mental health problem. And they will transform on the inside by following the techniques that Guru Maharaj has given us. And sometimes we're reading that Gurbani, we don't really understand what we're saying, but we're hoping to change anyway. And if we think about it, it's not just going to happen like that. There's an instruction that Maharaji's given us. So Maharaji Kende, we've been given this human life to meet Vaheguru. Nothing else will work. Avar kaaj tere kite naam, other than mil sad sangat, bhaj keval naam. Learn how to meditate on Vaheguru in that sad sangat. It doesn't mean you could only do it with other people, but learn through that sad sangat, and then you can have your personal practice as well, which is what we're going to be encouraging throughout these weeks. And learn that you are not your body, you're not what you did in the past, you're not your trauma, you're not your family circumstance, you're not unworthy. These are all things that we've accumulated, that mail we've accumulated for lifetimes, thinking that we're the external or what we've done in the past. We're our job. But actually, Maharaji is saying, just like Benji was giving that example of Ganika, who was a prostitute, of Sajjan Tug, who was a serial killer, of cannibals, of all kinds of the worst people in society, but they were transformed through this Naam, through this Simran. So we're going to do that now. We're going to try to have a practical experience of that now. And obviously, it's anything that we do, it's going to take practice. We say Naam Abhyas or Simran Abhyas. Abhyas means practice. The more we practice it, the more we will progress at it, the more we will start to feel better, the more we will start to change. And then after that, the more we will start to experience viscerally, beyond the senses, Vaheguruji's presence within our lives. So, Maharaj kende, Sravani suniye, Rasana gaiye, Hirde tyaye sui. So there's a very simple technique that Maharaji gives us. There might be people that you know, or you might be one of those people who, like me, were told to do Simran, and I would just say Vaheguru, Vaheguru, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know there was more of a technique than just saying Vaheguru. So Maharaji tells us in different ways, Gaviya, Suniya, Manarakhiya Pao, that there's a way. So the first part of that Simran is to chant the name. Bhai Guru Das Ji's Vara tell us in multiple places that Guru Nanak Dev Ji themselves gave us the Guru Mantra, that mantra of Vaheguru. Vaheguru Guru Mantra hai, jap hom mein khoe. In another place, Bhai Guru Das Ji tells us that Guru Nanak Dev Ji came and specifically gave us that mantra of Vaheguru. Vaheguru Guru Sabad Sunaya. In Bhai Nand Lal Ji's Raitnama, so Bhai Nand Lal Ji was the person who was with Guru Gobind Singh Ji, who wrote for them, who wrote poetry with them. And they tell us within their Retnama, Vahiguru, Guru Japi, Vahiguru Kartyan, Mukt Lab Mo Hoye Hai, Gur Sikh Rid Mehman. So they're giving a direct instruction, chant Vahiguru, meditate on Vahiguru. And through that, you'll obtain this freedom, this mukti from not only from these lifetimes, but from all the shackles of society, from the shackles of illness, from the shackles of who we think that we are, this homme, this ego. Maharaji is telling us. So that Guru Mantra, Vaheguru, that word Vaheguru, is one name for God. Now, if you come from a different tradition, you can chant Ram, you can chant Allah, you can chant God, you can chant love. But as we progress on the Sikhi path, the Panj Pyare, who are Guru Roop, they give us the Vaheguru as the mantra, as the name that we're going to chant. So we're going to go with that Vaheguru mantra as we've been given by the Panj Pyare, and we're going to continue with that through these sessions, but we're going to go deeper and deeper with it. So what's that technique? Sravani Suniya. So Maharaj says the very first thing that's really important is when you're chanting, we need to listen, because this is a kill of the mind. This is a game of the mind. We can do whatever we want with our body, with our mouth. We can have knowledge. But if our mind doesn't learn to focus internally, then we're not going to change. We're not going to become closer to Vaheguru, right? So we can read 20 Sukhmani Sai parts. But if your mind was not paying attention to those words, nothing's going to happen. You can chant Vaheguru with your heart and mind all day long. But if your mind has been in the 10 directions, thinking of the past, thinking of the future, judging, then nothing's going to change. So we need to be fully present as we're chanting. As we're chanting with this mouth, we're saying, why? Guru. What's really important is that we're listening. So you might have come across this in other meditation techniques. Mindfulness, being in the present moment. Just like our thoughts are clouds and the sun is that jyot within us, we allow those clouds to pass. Our thoughts are not true. They lie to us sometimes. I was doing a talk at a school on Friday, and some of the students were like, wow, yeah, my mind lied to me. It told me that I hated my mum because she took my phone off me, but it wasn't true. That's how the Panch Jor speak within us. But Maharaj kende vichar mare tare tare. As we start to kill these thoughts, we bring our mind back to Vaheguru. We set that intention. We want to connect to something. That's that Vaheguru. And the thought will arise, and we'll train our mind like a muscle to keep coming back again and again to that Guru Mantra, to Vaheguru. So the technique is that simple in the beginning. We're chanting Vaheguru Rasana Gaye. We're listening to the sound of our voice. Our mind will go off, we bring it back. Our mind will go off, we bring it back. We build that muscle of the mind. So in that way, it's very similar to mindfulness and any other tradition to begin with. But it also takes us beyond that. And we'll get into that as we progress with these weeks. So let's try this now.
Yeah,
We're going to
just at
try
this
it.
point,
Hanji, go for it,
just at
Benji.
this point, Benji, just as we're about to connect now and take our attention inwards, what Benji said is really important. It's something I used to kind of overlook, that we really want to pay attention to the sound of our voice. The Gurbani says, "Tona meh dhyan, dhyan meh janiya, gurmukh agat kahani." We want to place our dhyan in the sound, so the sound vibration that's being produced as we chant. So at this point, we don't want to be focusing on any akkars or letters. You know, sometimes we've got these practices that we've tried to use with very good intention, you know, like focusing on the akkar or Vaheguru, or focusing on a light, or, you know, focusing on a part of the body. So for this, it's really important that we take our attention away from all of that. You know, sometimes we might be focusing on colors or other things, but at this point, we want to try and get all of us on the same page so we can all progress together. I want to take our attention away from all of those things and simply bring it into the sound of our voice.
जी जी So Maharaj कहते नौदर ठाके तावत रहाय dasave nijkar vasa pai. So Maharaj is saying we've got these 9 doors of the body, the 2 ears, the nostrils, the eyes, the mouth, 2 down below. So what we want to do is close them off to the external world, right? So we're going to close our eyes. That's step one. We're going to detach as much as we can from any sounds around us. We're also going to detach from the body. So make sure you're sitting in a relaxed way. It doesn't matter to me whether you're crossing your legs, whether you're leaning against a wall, whether you're sitting on a beanbag, on a comfy sofa or a chair, because ultimately what we want to do is we want to disconnect from the body completely. So take a moment, find a comfortable position. Obviously, if we're starting, it's really good to be sitting a little bit up straight and having that focused mind and not falling asleep straight away. But as we'll find out in later weeks, it really does not matter. At some point, our intention is to go into that space of sleep as well. But for now, the only intention that we have is, first of all, that ardas, that we want to connect to Paramatma. We want to know them. We want to experience them. And secondly, we want to just focus on that sound. So the thought comes, we let it go. We let go of anything visual. We let go of any, we don't want to bring a picture of Guru Nanak Dev Ji into our eyes, because ultimately Vaheguru is beyond form, right? So we're just going to focus on that sound, and practicing listening to our voice now prepares us also to hear that internal sound. So next week, we'll be starting to talk about what is that internal sound? What is that prakash, that light? And how do we start to connect to that? Who are we really beyond this mind, beyond this body? So sit comfortably, close your eyes, and really listen, really focus on the sound of your own voice. We're going to chant Vaheguru in two parts. We're going to say Vai, then we're going to say Guru. We're going to say Vai, then we're going to say Guru. And we just want to be really paying attention to Vai. There's the space in between. Guru. The mind might go off. We bring it back. The mind will go off. We bring it back. So let's prepare the body first of all. We can take a deep breath, breathing in through your nose. Exhale through your mouth. Just relax your body. So this isn't necessarily part of the Simran, but nowadays we live such stressed lives. We're so disconnected from everything. We just want to prepare ourselves. So we're going to completely relax that body. Just allow yourself to be comfortable. And I'm going to begin to chant. And as I'm chanting, just join in, really focusing. It does not matter how many thoughts you've had. What matters is, did you bring the mind back? Every time you bring it back, we build that muscle. So aao, sareyan ne kirpa karni hai. Everybody please take part. Sravani suniye, listening with our ears. Rasana gaiye, chanting with our tongue. Hirde tyaye soy, keep that beloved, that Pritam Pyar. Why, Guru, 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 why, Guru. So let go of any judgments about what we're doing right now. We're just going to completely focus just on that sound. Gurbani kahe, sivak jana mane. Bring the mind back again and again. So we're going to chant again. We might go a little bit faster just because the thoughts might be too much, and then we'll become slow it down again. So I'm not going to interrupt again. Relax your body, focus on the sound. Let go of any judgments, any other thoughts, just that sound. Why, Guru, 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 Why Guru, why Guru, why Guru, why Guru, why Guru, little louder. Why Guru, 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 Guru, why 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 Guru. Chanting with the breath now, inhaling Vahe, exhaling Guru. Long deep breaths. Still focusing on the Guru mantra. And now chanting internally Antargat. So as you inhale, feel Vahi, and as you exhale, Guru chant in your mind, listen in mind. And now, just for a moment, completely let go and just listen. Suniya, Suniya, Duk, Papakanas. So Maharaj kende, Kara Sukha Vasya, Bar Sukha Paya, Koho Nanak, Guru Mantar Diriraya. That when we embed our mind with the Guru Mantar, Vaheguru, we experience that internal peace, Kara Sukha Vasya. Because this body is only our temporary home. But as we do this Simran, as we disconnect from the body, we go into our true home. Nijakar, Sahajakar, Sachakand, Jotapad, Duryapad. There's so many shabads, so many words in Gurbani that tell us again and again that our true home is with Vaheguru. It's not a physical place. And as we disconnect from our body, we disconnect from our thoughts, we find ourselves in that place, that sun, that samadhi, that place beyond thought, that void. And that's where that transformation happens. That's where that connection, that experience starts to happen. And rather than just knowing or believing that we're Vaheguruji's light, that we're not just this identity, this ego, we start to have an insight and experience that. So as we embed that Guru Mantar inside, we let go of the external. We experience that peace of our true home, our true mother and father. Tum Mata Pita hum barik tere. Tumari kirpa mein sukh ganere. You are my true mother and father. I am your child. And when I come home back to you, I experience that profound peace that nothing in the world can give me. And as we experience that by chanting the Guru Mantra internally, what we see is then all of those things externally that used to bother us, they start to fade as well. Bar Sukhapaya. We start to mehsoos, we start to experience, feel that peace outside of us as well. And then it's not just us, this one person who transforms. Our families transform. Our generations transform as we connect to this wisdom and practically connect to that space of Vaheguru. So before we open our eyes, just take a moment to notice any difference that's occurred, to notice the state of mind, the state of body as we come back into it. And now we just want to start to open our eyes very gently, just a little bit at a time, 10% at a time. And as we do that, we want to maintain that internal connection. Because most of our suffering comes from the external or from our belief systems, the thoughts of the mind. And so what we're practicing here is going inwards, disconnecting from that and reconnecting to that light, that divine sound, that everythingness that's within us. And so what we want to do is we want to make this our nit practice, our daily practice. Because we have Janama Janamandimel, for lifetimes we've been coming and going in reincarnation, 8.4 million lives. बहुत जन्म बिछड़े थे माधो, ये जन्म तुम्हारे लिखे, कह रविदास आस लग जीवो, चिर पयो darshan देखे. So for so many lifetimes, we've been attached to our family, to conflict, to the physical realm. But this time, we want to overcome all of that and experience Waheguru while we're alive. And if we can experience Waheguru while we're alive, then that's where we'll return. If we have that darshan, if we see Waheguru, if we hear Waheguru, if we feel that love inside of our hearts while we're alive through these techniques of Simran, then that's where we'll go once this body ceases to exist. So it's not just about that journey that happens after we die. It's about the experience that we're having right here, right now. And it is only an experience that we can have right here, right now, beyond time. By making this mind ekagar, by making this mind be present to focus only on Vaheguru. And as we do that more and more, as we practice it more and more, the mind becomes more and more stable. It gets used to going to its true home and coming back. And with it, it brings gun, it brings virtues, more peace, more bliss, more love. And you'll start to see that then, even when your eyes are open, you're able to connect to that experience as you do your work, as you are with your family, or you go to work, or you do your seva, you are having that experience within you. So we're going to send a recording out and we'll put it on the WhatsApp group. So if you want to, you can use that recording. It will just be 5 to 10 minutes long and you can listen to that every day. So just create some space in your day, whether it's first thing in the morning, wake up 10 minutes earlier. This will make a profound difference in your life. It's worth those 10 minutes. These are the breaths that Maharaj gave us. This is our true work. So let's give ourselves those 10 minutes, either first thing in the morning, last thing at night. Those are the optimum times to do it. If, for example, you've got very young children and it's difficult to find that time, when they're having a nap, that's okay. But our brain waves slow down. There's lots of stuff that we're going to talk about in terms of science as well. Our brain waves slow down first thing in the morning, last thing at night. Our melatonin levels rise, which is a hormone that helps us to relax. So there are optimum times, but for now, we just want to get into this practice. Again, it does not matter how busy your mind is, how many thoughts you've had in those 10 minutes. What matters is how many times did you bring it back, because that's more than what you were doing before. The only bad meditation is the one that you didn't do. I stole that from somewhere, but I think it's really cool. So let's do it. Let's make that commitment as a Sangat to at least those 10 minutes every day. And we'll send it as a guided meditation. So in the same way we explained how we're doing it, why we're doing it, we will do that in the recording. And that just makes it easier for us. Hanji. So our time is up. If anybody wants to type any questions, we are going to create an opportunity on, is it Thursday evening, Benji? Darshan Benji? Angie. So on Thursday evening, we will put, we recommend that everybody joins the WhatsApp group. So we'll put up the recording for the meditation Instagram link. So we're planning to do an Instagram live on Thursday where you can ask any questions that you've had. So we won't necessarily have the time to do that now. Equally, if you want to put a question on WhatsApp, you can do that as well. We also have a Telegram group. So the QR code is on there. So Sangat at different times, whenever they have time, because it's really important that we have Sangat that really motivates us. Whenever Sangat has time, different people will come on Telegram. It's an app you can download for free. And they'll start doing Simran. And you can just listen, join in and start chanting alongside. We also have different times, which we will also put on the WhatsApp group, where we'll have a little bit of gatha in English, so a little bit more explanation in English. We have a Wednesday evening slot. There's a men's group on a Saturday. After this course, there will be another women's group. There's in-person if you're around Slough on a Monday or on a Saturday morning, we have Simran. So there's lots of opportunity, but we'll put all those details in the WhatsApp group. If you don't have WhatsApp, Benji, what do they do if they don't have WhatsApp? We've got an email address, I think.
Yeah,
What's
WhatsApp,
the email
basically. There's an
Yeah.
email address, Sikh Spirituality Network at gmail.com.
Yeah, but even if you just get WhatsApp, don't tell your family and friends and just follow this group and keep it for that. That will be perfect, Anji. So, Bullichuk maaf karna if we made any mistakes in our Gurbani Ucharan, anything, Sangat and the Guru is able to forgive. So please forgive us for any mistakes. We wanted to take it slow. We just wanted to go with the inspiration this time because that's what's brought us here. And then as the weeks continue, we'll go much more deeper into the Gurbani. We'll try and bring in a bit of psychology and science to show where it helps us to understand and where it's actually limited. And we'll also go much, much deeper into the technique as well and how this game of life works. So please bear with us. Please come back every week, Maharaj Kirpa Karan. And we finish with this ardas that Maharaji, please unite us with yourself as a Sangat. Deho sajan assis sariyan jo hove sahib sio mel. Waheguru ji ka khalsa. Waheguru ji ki fateh. Anji. Waheguru. Waheguru. Waheguru.